Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Crypto Check-In, recorded on July the 31st, 2024. I'm your host, Robert Swarthout, and I'm joined by my co-host, Andres Sandate. How's it going, Andres?
Hey, Robert. Good. Final day of summer for me. Kids go back to school tomorrow. So we've been trying to keep them busy these last couple weeks, but it all starts back up tomorrow for us.
Yeah, so there's probably parents that feel all sorts of different ways about this, but is tomorrow a good day or a bad day?
No, I mean, I'm excited for them, and we got up to the campus to meet some of their teachers. So yeah, it'll be easier probably to work from home during the day, of course, without the three of them and their friends and stuff. But yeah, I mean, summer always marks the transition because any parents that are listening or will listen can relate. You go from sort of an unstructured 3 months to kind of back to a formal structure. So that part of it has its pluses and minuses.
Yeah. Now there's a strict bedtime.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Early wake up calls.
Yes. Cool. Well, our first topic here is the state of Michigan adds Bitcoin ETFs to its pension fund. They're not the first one. I think the third one, if I'm not mistaken. And it's admittedly a small investment, but that's how they all start.
Right.
They reported it at $6.6 million of an investment in, I believe, ARC B. That's the Bitcoin ETF.
Yep.
I've seen other numbers that says it's 7.4, whatever it is, it kind of doesn't matter. It's still a very small percentage of their portfolio and likely will be growing over time as they kind of probably buy into a position as they head towards
something going on there in the upper Midwest. Because curiously, the state of Wisconsin's investment board was one of the first pension funds to report their pension fund added about a 10 basis point position at the end of May in their 13F filings, at least that came out. They had about 150 million, more or less, at the time investment between the BlackRock ETF and the Grayscale Trust. So I don't know what it is with the upper Midwest. I'd love to see some of these additional state pension funds and endowments get into it. Of course, there's probably a lot more money, foundations, endowments, some of them that are private. Obviously, the Ivy Leagues, they may not have to report the way the public pensions do. So it's hard to know. But certainly it does feel like, and I know we're going to talk about this, it does feel like there's a lot more interest on the BTC side.
Bitcoin side. Yeah, it's as you're talking, I was kind of thinking like I would have never picked the Midwest to be the first. Probably towards the end, if I would have had to have guessed. And I'm surprised that California's not first. I just kind of always assume as a technology forward-thinking state that maybe they would, but obviously very different strategy can be employed by the people working at this respective funds.
Yeah, and sometimes with the bigger pensions, the ones in California come to mind, like CalSTRS and CalPERS. The dollar amounts are so big that they got criticized for a long time for having pulled out of hedge funds at CalPERS. This was 5 years ago or so, but their rationale was, it was such a small allocation that in order for it to be meaningful, they would have had to invest significant dollars, and it was very difficult to invest those size of dollars in hedge funds at that time without sort of influencing the market or being a big share of those managers' assets. So, I think that there's probably going to be more pensions and endowments and foundations to invest. These are just early movers. The state of Wisconsin has always been an early adopter. Their CIO, David Villa, before he retired, I think. But it's cool to see.
Yep. So our second topic you kind of alluded to a bit, but so there was a Bitcoin conference this last week in Nashville, kind of ran into the weekend, and lots of big names there. You had RFK Jr. speaking. I believe that was on Friday. You had Trump speaking on Saturday. You had Senator Loomis speaking, I think actually after Trump on Saturday. And Michael Saylor was there, all sorts of names. So we got a lot of news to talk about in this particular bullet point. And I guess the first one I just find almost to the point where I just laugh at it is Michael Saylor was on stage and he was apparently talking about the year 2045. And he has decided that Bitcoin will be worth $13 million a token. You could have convinced me he was doing a comic this a comedy skit.
Stand up.
I'm just like, why 2045? Why 13 million? Like, there's no backup of any of this, and it's just to catch headlines. So maybe I should just ignore him and pretend he doesn't exist, because it does kind of irritate me that this ends up being news. And there could be better structured stuff out there. So,
well, nothing like talking your own book. We know MicroStrategy has obviously a bullish, long, whatever you want to call it, position on Bitcoin. So, yeah, I mean, he's talking his own book, and obviously is a big bull here. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to cover with this conference. Obviously, he seems like he was one that was out to make headlines, but then there was even more to come.
Yes,
for those in attendance.
Yeah. So RFK actually gave a pretty thoughtful speech when he was talking. He's obviously a candidate for president this fall, and he was saying how he would order the DOJ and U.S. Marshals to transfer the approximately 200,000 Bitcoin the U.S. Treasury holds to be held as a strategic asset. And he was the first really to comment on this. And then, like, it seemed like everyone else that got on stage had their version of this kind of talking point. So Trump, Loomis, and I believe there was a fourth person that was a little less consequential. But so he believed that. He believes that the U.S., if he was president, he would sign an executive order directing the Treasury to purchase 550 Bitcoin daily until the U.S. has built a reserve of at least 4 million Bitcoin. For those following along at home, that is just shy of 20% of all Bitcoins ever that will be in existence,
regardless of price.
Yes, right.
I mean, he probably take questions from the crowd, but so we're going to start building a stockpile or build a reserve of Bitcoin.
Correct.
Sort of the idea.
His point was no other country. The U.S. should be the home of Bitcoin. There should be no other country that has dominance over Bitcoin. Okay, fine, great. Set that aside. Like, where's the money going to come from for this? For a country that is, albeit already having trouble paying its bills, we're always having to create more money. This just seems odd. There's not been anybody for the longest period of time saying the U.S. should buy more gold. Why do we need more? Why do we need any Bitcoin? I don't know. Obviously, I sound very negative about it. I'm just confused. What's the point? Senator Loomis, who we've alluded to here, was up talking about she wants the U.S. to hold 1 million Bitcoin, and they should be buying it at some frequency to kind of get there over the course of 5 years. Great. Well, we already hold 200, so we got to buy another 800. Hers was, the excess reserves that the Fed has would be where the capital comes from to buy it. I don't know, possibly. The Bitcoin community is so focused only on itself that, like, it's just, I don't know. It just blows my mind. Like, there's some smart people in that community, but like it's such an echo chamber. And granted, it was a conference for Bitcoin, so you have to understand the context.
Right.
It was just
it's hard. It's hard to get anybody to talk about, the use case of Bitcoin.
Right.
It's always store of value. It's always a strategic asset. It's always, up and to the right. I'm not sure what the number would be at the end of this podcast, but as it stands today, and I'm looking at fiscaldata.treasury.gov, our U.S. federal debt is at 35 trillion with a T. So, the idea also, I think that Senator Loomis mentioned is that, we could pay off half of our national debt by investing in Bitcoin and using Bitcoin to do so. And I think you made the point offline, like, or we could just stop spending
as much money,
substantially beyond our means.
It's a new concept. We just figured that part out, but I don't know. They're kind of going through the different points here that we had. So another thing that RFK said that I actually found kind of intriguing was he would direct the IRS to treat Bitcoin as an eligible asset for 1031 exchange into real property.
Yeah.
Like, you could see, because, if Bitcoin even does a portion of what these people at this conference think it's going to do,
right?
There's a lot of wealth created within Bitcoin. So a lot of these Bitcoiners will never sell their Bitcoin because they're fundamentally against taxes and all the other crazy reasons.
Right.
But if you give them the ability to, in some ways, unlock that value, put it out into the world, I could be on board with that concept. 1031 or something like it.
That's not the craziest proposal that came out of
Right.
Nashville.
This one felt pretty normal. If he had just said that, it might have felt crazy. But he said all these other things that actually made that one seem toned down. So it was fun. I obviously wasn't at the conference. I was watching it through Twitter over the weekend, and then watched the live stream when Trump was speaking. He got up there and he was like, talked about his reserve, and then he's like, "Oh, I would direct on day one, I would fire Gary Gensler." And the crowd erupted.
Right.
Obviously people within crypto know everyone hates Gary, thinks he's done a terrible job.
Right.
I think Trump probably had an idea that Gary wasn't great and the crypto community didn't like him. I'm sure somebody kind of brought him up to speed, but when he said it, the crowd was so overly excited that I think it took him off, caught him off guard, and he kind of went back to that talking point. Trump's going to play the crowd, of course.
Sure.
It was pretty cool to see him surprised. You don't often see a surprised look on his face. So
yeah,
it was.
I mean, obviously, it was as you call them, Bitcoin Maxi Conference.
Right.
I did see some highlights from some of the speeches. Didn't Matt Hogan from Bitwise also speak at the conference about there was a number of big crypto luminaries. Well, clearly it's moved into the mainstream, and I even saw a headline that Kamala Harris, the vice president, has said she wants a reset with the crypto community. So it seems like everybody's globbing on right now to make sure that they get their 2 cents in here with respect to the election and just the amount of money that's being moved into these races.
Exactly. Many of the things I've read about Kamala Harris and potentially like what her platform's like, the people in the crypto community that have been asked to be part of a roundtable with her are basically given ultimatums like, I'm not going to come to your roundtable unless you fire Gary Gensler and officially stop Choke Point 2.0. Choke Point 2.0. Obviously that hasn't happened as of this recording. You know what? Maybe they're just pandering for votes. That's probably what I'm inclined to think until I see some action taken and things change. But it's a crazy, I guess, 3 days in Nashville. I would have never thought Bitcoin would be such a big thing in Nashville, but the conference is held there, and people seem to be enjoying spending some time out there. So
I'm curious, the folks that you think are going to the conference, are they going there to learn, or is it sort of like a love fest for anybody that's in crypto, and you just talk about your holdings and you talk about where you think it's going and listen to these luminaries?
I think there is some technical stuff that happens where like people are trying to figure out other ways to use Bitcoin, but I think it's very much a love fest, a bit of a just I don't know, just being happy together, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it.
Right.
It's Bitcoin's not used for tons of different things. So it's like there's admittedly not much to talk about besides, oh, I want the price to go up. Do you want the price to go up? Yes, around the circle.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure like any hobby or interest or investment, whether it's cars, antiques, wine, gold, right? You can probably find a conference organizer who's willing to put a big festival on, charge people to come. And of course, the city of Nashville, love to have those guests, love to have those tourist dollars.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So
awesome. Well, so our next point, actually, I'm going to go to the fourth point because it kind of does tie back. So when Trump was talking about, he would direct the Treasury to hold those 200,000 Bitcoin as a reserve asset. He said that as part of his speech. Literally, I think like 2 days later, that was the 30th. So yesterday.
Yeah.
No, my dates are wrong here. I'm sorry. They had this right. I must have closed the tab.
Was it Monday?
The point, Monday. The point is the whoever's custodying those assets, those Bitcoin currently, moved them to a new wallet. They hadn't been moving forever. So it's like, okay, now we have these kind of games happening on top of all this. I was like, you know what? I should have not been surprised. I should have expected it to happen. So I guess, a bit of a game we can play here is, do you think that the current administration tries to sell these before the election?
I might say no, just because I think he's going to want to go out. Biden's going to want to go out without this big cloud. And he's going to pardon his son, but
Okay.
he's going to go out without this big cloud hanging over him to
Yeah.
try to give Harris the best odds he can of winning in November.
Yeah, I guess potentially they could do it after the election during lame duck.
Yeah, that's true.
They could do it then.
Yeah, that's when all the pardons happen.
Yes.
Yeah, and all the shenanigans. Yes.
Yeah. So, anyways, we will see. So our third topic here, Grayscale ETF outflows, has hit 2 billion in 6 trading days. A fast and furious pace.
Wow.
The joke is by the end of next week they will be at 0. I haven't looked to see what their total AUM was before. I don't know what percentage 2 billion is. My guess is when we talked about it last Wednesday, when we were only a day into trading, they had 500 million in outflows in one day. So the pace obviously is slowed from that first day, but it's
not going in the right direction.
None of their products are. I mean, and we're going to get to the thing down below where they've launched another Bitcoin ETF, which their strategy, I would love to have just been a fly on the wall to hear them talk about how they do marketing of their and pricing of their assets or their offerings. So, we, pretty aggressive there, and we'll see if how long they hold on. That's again a 2.5% fee. I guess we might as well jump to it. The Grayscale they're also launching a new Bitcoin ETF today. They're calling it the Mini Me. I guess is not the official name, but what people are calling it on the street. Of 15 basis points instead of the 200 basis points that their other one is. That is GBTC. This one is just BTC. They've done some conversion from the old one into the new one. The strategy just blows my mind. Like, do they think they're going to market these mini ETF with the lower fees and convince people that were in the older ones paying the higher fees that they're the same? I don't know. It seems rather odd.
I haven't done enough, I guess, research on Grayscale. When they launched the exchange traded products, like version 1, these higher fee products that were in trusts,
private trust,
right? They were higher fee. They were 2% or more, right? Obviously, these index products, these ETFs, are selling for 15, 20, 25 basis points, right?
Right.
They're losing money, or they're losing dollars, outflows. One, because there's a cheaper product that's available, 10x cheaper, right? So you can save 90% in fees.
Right. That is no different.
That's no different, right? So part of this is just kind of like a fee arbitrage. Do they offer I guess an investment case, to your knowledge, for why folks would consider staying in the ETP? That's 2.5%.
I haven't seen any besides the thing that we've talked about before. Just like some of those investors in that product have such a capital gains that they may not want to pay to get out. And the only way you get in and out of these now is cash. There's no in kind. If it would be really fascinating to see, at some point, it sounds like we will get to a point where the SEC has its head screwed on straight and allows in kind creation and redemption. I can imagine that the GBTC product dries up real quickly then, because people could just move it to another provider that has the lower fee.
Well, according to their website, the ETH, this is the Ethereum ETP. They gap AUM as of yesterday was close to $7 billion.
Okay.
So they were at 6.9 billion as of 7:30. And what you said, that they've seen 2 billion of outflows over, is that the prior week?
6 trading days. So
okay. Yeah. So at that clip, that
by the end of August it should be 0.
Right. They're going to be Now, who's picking up these assets? The question is, are we seeing on the other side these dollars flowing out fully? Not always, but some flowing into other Ethereum products.
When I looked, it wasn't at 2 billion yet for the Grayscale. It was at 1.5. But even still, at that number, there wasn't a total amount of inflows on all the others that would account for $1.5 billion. It was like 1.2, 1.3 billion. So maybe some people are holding money back for taxes. I don't know, but it was functionally net zero there or close to it. So
interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's again, Grayscale. They were long criticized before these ETFs were launched for just being high fees for not a great reason. They just knew they were the only game in town and they could charge function what they wanted, and they continue to treat their clients in the same way they always have, which is fascinating to watch. So,
well, and then you look at the GBTC. This is Grayscale's Bitcoin product. The gap AUM in that one is almost 16 billion in GBTC.
But that's way down. That was up at near 70 billion.
Right.
They have bled a lot, and that product was around much longer. So
yeah, it looks like it's been around. Some of them been around. Well, since what, 17, 18, something like that.
Right. Yep.
Or in 15, it looks like is when it was first quoted
for
GBTC.
Yeah. Cool. So our last topic, we kind of shift gears here, and I've long talked about, crypto gets interesting for me really when you start to be able to use it for real things. It's not just a pure speculative asset.
Right.
In this case, the news item is California with a technology provider have digitized 42 million car titles on which blockchain was it? On the, sorry, I do not have, well, I'll find it in a minute. But the cool thing about it is their whole idea is they're trying to reduce fraud. They're trying to increase the speed at which they can reissue titles and when they change ownership and do all the things. It was done on the Avalanche blockchain, and so that's AVAX, AVAX for those curious at home. But it's cool. This is one of the many things. I was surprised to see, in some sense, that they did the entire state. You think they would have done some kind of pilot?
Maybe I was going to say, you said 42 million, and I was going to joke, but so when are they going to do everything outside of LA? Because that's about as many cars as I think that people in LA probably think there are on the road.
The people would think that 42 million titles, and I want to say that they said that there was 41 million people, 39 million residents. So there's more than one car on a ratio basis there, but it's you'll be able to use a mobile app to claim ownership of your title and start the transfer process. So it's not more than just digitizing. Like they're actually going to start to try to use that in a way that you would think that they would eventually do. But it's kind of out of the gate doing it, which is really cool.
Well, I don't know what's more shocking, that it's the Department of Motor Vehicles that moved first here to adopt blockchain technology to digitize car titles, or if it's the state of California. Because like we talked about, they haven't been as aggressive or progressive when it comes to allocating into the asset class like Wisconsin and Michigan, but really cool to see a real commercial use case.
Yeah. So
it's
we should be talking about these every episode or once a month. It's not happening quite that clip, but I look forward to seeing all the different use cases. Obviously there's more states that can do this than you have house deeds or property deeds, and all sorts of real property that has ownership attached to it. So
yeah, I would think, just about any government document like this, right?
Yeah. Contract, all sorts of stuff can end up in
the all kinds of documents, which I feel like when you and I probably first started talking about this, and you've been in blockchain, digital assets, and crypto for much longer, but I remember when we first started talking about some of the very basic potential use cases, these were the kinds of things that you were telling me that you could do. And when I think you first start getting into blockchain and crypto, you hear about this stuff, and then for some people, they go down the rabbit hole and they start becoming investors, and you start getting into tokens and NFTs and all this other stuff. But these are some of the real practical, real world, everyday things that people can relate to.
Yeah, and then you'll
Like, where did I put my title? I know I paid my car off. I know I no longer have a note, but where's the actual document?
Right.
You know?
Now you just have to figure out which app to use to open on your phone.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it easier or is it harder?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Cool.
well, that's
Awesome.
cool.
Well, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Weekly Crypto Check-In. If you want to stay updated on future episodes, you can find us on any podcast player by searching Teton Crypto Capital or Weekly Crypto Check-In. Take care.
Thank you.